Joining us now is NBC News science contributor Dr. Joseph Fair, who's a virologist who was on the front lines of the Ebola outbreak. Dr. Fair, good morning. You heard the president talking this morning about reopening parts of the country before May the 1st. In your professional opinion, is that a wise idea?
No, frankly, where we are right now, when we talk about flattening the curve, we're just at the plateau part of the curve. So the moment we relax social distancing guidelines, that's going to turn into a new peak. And so the peak can only go higher, right? And so we're right now at flattening the curve, but what we ultimately want to do before we consider any relaxation of any kind of social distancing measures would be to actually decrease the curve and see a steady decline in the curve to almost zero. Something
obviously important is testing to figure out who's sick, who's not sick, who's already been sick. You need widespread testing. How close do you think this country is to doing that? Because that's really what you need to do before you can reopen the country.
To be frank, to where we need to, I think to get to where we need to be with testing, I think it's going to take us realistically anywhere from 2 to maybe 6 months. And that's including, to get the nasal swab test out to literally everyone that needs to have it, as well as the antibody test that, you've probably heard talked about recently.
Well, we're a country of 330 million.
Absolutely. That's why I give the timeline.
I think 3 million have been tested. What do you think the right number of people that needs to be tested? Like, what's that number so that we can feel safe going back to work, going back to restaurants?
I can't give an exact number, but I would say we'd want to test it, at least anyone that's going to go back into a situation at work where they're going to be in very close proximity with other people. And so that's going to be any major kind of office buildings, for example, here at NBC, it'd be, kind of Smithfield Pork, which is just shut down. Anywhere where you're going to have really close and intimate contact with others and not be able to avoid that social distancing, which of course brings up a lot of questions. What about schools, right? You can't avoid that in schools. And so we're going to have to come up with a plan for that.
And also, I also think people's personal comfort, because I think even if business is open, would someone want to sit at a table where 6 feet away someone else is sitting at a table and coughing? So you really have to have confidence to have people go back.
You have to have confidence, and I think what we're going to see is a change in how we live our lives post-COVID-19. And, this is, I think it was Dr. Fauci that said it's not going to be a light switch. I think for a while, you're going to go into restaurants that maybe seat half of the number of individuals that they would seat in a night before, because they're going to need to maintain some social distancing in those restaurants for some time to come. Grocery stores, I think you're going to see it where, we have lanes where kind of like a roadway, this lane goes this way and this lane goes that way. And I think we're going to start seeing, some changes like that to our lives, which we wouldn't have expected pre-COVID-19.
So long term, do you think we have to wait for a vaccine before we're no longer social distancing? They're saying that's 18 months away. Do we have to wait till late 2021 before we can be closer than 6 feet away from somebody?
It's hard to say at this point in time. It's either going to one of two things is going to happen first. We're either going to develop this herd immunity that that we've talked about, rather, that where a good percentage of the population has had the virus and recovered from it and has some temporary immunity to it, or a vaccine. And I think we probably will end up meeting in the middle somewhere. But I think it was the mayor of Los Angeles that said he'd really had trouble seeing any mass gathering events before 2021. And to be honest, I agree with that assessment. It's bleak and that's unfortunate, but this virus is going to be with us at least until that time. We are not going to have a vaccine before the end of the year, in my opinion. I hope I'm proven wrong on that, but I don't think we're going to have a vaccine in humans ready for use in humans by the end of the year. So I think we can look at least until going into 2021 to have these measures in effect.
Okay. All right, Dr. Joseph Fair. Dr. Fair, thank you so much.
My pleasure.